that there are a range of views. But the notion that we would have 11 or 12 million people in this country living in the shadows is wrong. That is wrong. There is a way to make it possible for people who, by the way, fundamentally are in pursuit of the same American dream as people who were born here. There's a way to reform our immigration rules so that it honors that value. And by the way, many of the people who are here, not all, but many of the people who came to this country illegally or overstayed their visa and therefore are here illegally, made those decisions because it is so hard to come here legally. So part of the president's reform is about making our current rules sensible and easier to comply with. I spent, I think some of you know, I lived in Africa between college and law school, and most of that time I worked in Darfur in Sudan, but for some of it I backpacked around, and I ended up in Western Africa, in West Africa, and I was out of money. And I got a job issuing visas in the American consulate in northern Nigeria in a town called Kaduna. Now this is 30 years ago. But even then, the rules for getting a visa to come to the United States were Byzantine. And the way it works so that there were, there are quotas for certain countries or certain parts of the world that are different from other parts of the world. It matters if you have money. If you don't have money, come on. There's a way to make that system simpler and fairer, and as I say, more reflective of our values, and that's what the president has proposed, and that's why I'm supporting it. Consistent with my day job, which is to be here. I've been invited to do a trade mission to Kenya. We've had Kenyan officials here. I've been taking my lead a little bit from the Kenyan officials who have visited, and the ambassador, who has become a friend actually. You probably know him as very at ease in Massachusetts and knows the scene here well. I see him twice a year, almost always during the time of the marathon, because nobody seems to be able to beat a Kenyan runner. So he's often here for that. But as I said earlier, I could spend all my time traveling around the world. I have that many invitations. There's that much interest in Massachusetts, and I'm a pretty good salesman for Massachusetts.
Would this be possible before your administration?
It's possible. It's possible, but I want to be realistic. There is a political cost I pay every time I leave. Every time I leave, and even though there are benefits for these trips, I'm not sitting around eating bonbons. I promise you. So I make a judgment about which ones I can do and should do as we go along. So it's not for lack of interest.